I don't think anybody is quite surprised that this month didn't go quite exactly according to plan. I want to start this video by giving a huge shout out to my new top tier Wizard Master patron, Christine. Thank you so much for your support. I also want to give a shout out to my other top tier Wizard Master patrons. Thank you, John, Nico, Aaron, Scott, Mike, Chris, Leslie, Doug, Wysich, Twaney, Spyro, Daniel, Chris the Bookaholic, Chris the Bearded Book Beast, and Heidi. Thank you so much for your support. Hey everyone, welcome back to Andrew's Wizard That Reads, and as you can probably tell from the intro, things didn't go according to plan. If you will recall, this is the month where I allowed a patron to pick my TBR. How did that go? Not very well. But before we get into that, please like this video and subscribe to the channel, as it does help the channel grow. And you can check the description box down below for links to all my social media, including information about my Patreon, links to the PANGO books, links to the Discord. It's all there for you to explore. Now, what do I mean by the month didn't go very well? Well, Daniel picked some amazing books, and then I have the attention span of a flea and only read about half of the books that he selected for me to read. And I just got completely distracted by the horror genre. Completely distracted by the horror genre. So, Daniel, sincerest apologies, but also you just picked some amazing books, and I am very grateful. So, we've got some stuff to talk about. First of all, the stuff that I don't own physically. Daniel did select for me to read the Hedge Wizard book by Alex Mahar, and I did get that one finished and read. Very good. I'm kind of intrigued to continue this series. Like, I want to continue reading Hedge Wizard. I think that's going to be something that may happen in 2025. It's just not something that makes me want to jump into the next series or the next entry in this series, but it is something that is kind of on my radar. It's like there. It's just like, hey, you read me and you really enjoyed me. I gave this one about a 4 stars. It was a B, B+. Very good, very intriguing, especially at the end where I'm like, we've got this party together and like our wizard Hump, he goes from apprentice at the beginning of the book to full-on hedge wizard. We have this great dungeon crawl thing going on. A lot of fun. There's just something that I was just like not immediately wanting to jump into the next entry in the series, but the inkling is there to come back and revisit this. And then I also read The Wishing Stone by Adam Holcomb. This is Necromancer Called Gam Gam #2, where we've got a ensemble cast in this entry. And I'm going to come down a little harder on this one than I did on Necromancer Called Gam Gam, because I think we had a more narrowed cast in Necromancer Called Gam Gam. We had, I believe it's Mina. As soon as I start talking about a book, names escape me. We had Mina and we had Gam Gam. And then we had some ancillary characters, but they were more side. And here we've still got a novella-length kind of entry #2, but we've then thrown in more additional POVs. We even get dedicated nugget POVs, which I liked the dedicated nugget POVs, but I would have liked those chapters to be offset by a longer book, essentially. As I just don't think we have the page count to warrant the additional nugget chapters. Even though this was a very good book, it was a great second entry for Gam Gam and Mina and the evolution of their relationship and bringing in new members into the fold. I liked everything that happened in here. I just structurally would have preferred a longer entry. But again, Adam continues to write very wholesome, very moving, very creative books. Again, like with the undead and then having like wholesome things with zombies. Adam is just a dark wizard, a wholesome dark wizard, but he's just very good at this. So I really enjoyed this. I believe it's coming out soon, and you can bet I'm going to get my hands on a copy to have it on my shelf. If I have to give this a rating, it's also like just a 4 out of 5. Not quite the 5 out of 5 that Necromancer Called Gam Gam was, but I think if we just had a little bit more page count, I wouldn't have minded those nugget chapters quite as much. Despite the fact that I don't know why I'm arguing with myself. Like, I like the nugget chapters. But at the same time, I was just like, but I want more Mina and I want more Gam Gam. So, I don't know. I don't know what I want, apparently, so just ignore everything I've said for the last 3 minutes. But very good. Coming out here soon. I'll link the Goodreads page in the description box down below. And then we've got the stuff that has been physically read. And we're going to start off with Joe Hill's Horns. I really, really enjoy... Actually, what I should do, instead of doing about Joe Hill's Horns, let's do the stuff that Daniel selected that I actually read. So we've got the one that I already read. And then you're going to see how bad I went, ooh, squirrel. It's bad. Okay, so we've got that one. We've got this one. And then we've got this one. So as you can see, of the 10 books that I asked Daniel to give me, 4 got read. Which is still pretty good. Like, a patron got to select 4 of my reads, and that's awesome. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, because he actually selected 2 Brent Weeks series for me to read. Now, he initially didn't select for me to read the Black Prism. He wanted me to read The Blinding Knife. However, it had been 5 years since I'd even tried Lightbringer. And so I was like, hey, do you mind if I throw in Black Prism? He's like, go for it. And then he wanted me to read Way of Shadows as well. And the end result is I'm unhauling all of my Brent Weeks. So thank you, Daniel, for getting 8 books out of my TBR. And it's not because I think these books are bad. I just don't think that I'm currently in a spot where I'm the target audience for these books. And what I mean by that, and I'll elaborate, is this has fantastic characters, fantastic magic, great world building, awesome intrigue, good mysteries to unpack, and all of that. I really enjoyed those elements of the Black Prism. What I didn't enjoy was the horny energy running throughout this book. And this is like the greatest representation of what it was like going through puberty as a teenage boy. I didn't enjoy it when I went through it. I don't want to be in somebody else's head when they're going through it. Specifically, I'm talking about Kip, one of the main protagonists of this book. And there's just something uncomfortable about having to not necessarily go through it again, but be in somebody else's head while they're going through it. And I'm just like, I don't know if I particularly liked that. And with the series being as divisive as it is, and I've talked to other people, they're like, just don't continue. So, unfortunately, I'm not going to be continuing. The flip side of it is I was going to read The Blinding Knife, only to then realize I've actually read The Blinding Knife before, and I just happened to forget. And because I've gotten so many comments about Night Angel Trilogy being YA, and I thought this was YA, or at least at the very minimum, New Adult. Which, if you don't understand what New Adult is, it's like this label that was created like 3 or 4 years ago to kind of bridge the gap between adult fantasy and YA. Because so much of this is adult fantasy, but the hormones, those bloody hormones in this book, whew, no, not for me. So I think we're going to give Brent Weeks a pass. I have listed a bunch of stuff on the Pangos. I know I had said I was going to shut down the Pango bookstore, but I've been unhauling a lot more lately, which could be completely predicated on all the horror reads that I have lately, which I could explain. We would have to get into a discussion about ADHD and hyperfixation, and I'm just not here to do that for you right now. So you can expect more horror coming up lately, especially because of spooky season, but also probably additionally past that for a little while, and then I can make a return and hyperfixate somewhere else. But yeah, we're going to be letting these go. I do have them listed on the Pango bookstore. So if you're interested in that, it's in the description box down below. And then I did this, The Silence of the Unworthy Gods by Andrew Rowe. This is Arcane Ascension number 4, which was great timing because book 5 just dropped. I will be picking that up on paperback here shortly. I haven't quite done so yet, but I plan to eventually. I really enjoyed this. There's a specific moment about 70% through this book that was just chef's kiss. It was so Corrin cadence. And you just really feel like Corrin has come into his own. I really enjoyed that moment. There was a bit heavy-handed preachiness in this one, which, don't get me wrong, like, if the world worked the way that it should work, or that, the way that, it's kind of being presented to the reader of like, hey, we can do this to improve society. I was like, okay, like, I get it. I felt a little preached at, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but when it comes to a story, if it breaks my immersion, that's not necessarily a good thing to me specifically. And there was enough of it where I noticed it. Instead of it being subliminal, it was very much like, hey, Corin thinks this, and it felt like an analyzation of our modern society. So those elements this far into the series, if you're this far into the series, those elements are not going to be a surprise to you, and you're not going to care. This is just kind of an asterisk for people who are thinking of picking up Arcane Ascension. Arcane Ascension, those elements are here, but again, very good. I'm going to give this like a 4.5 out of 5. Despite the fact that it feels like I just criticized it. I still had a lot of fun with this. It was fantastic. Especially that moment just where, I'm being very vague, but it's just so good. So incredibly good. Loved it. So that was a great pick. And then we've got the Martyr here, and yes, you can see a bookmark tassel just kind of flinging around. That's because I'm still currently reading this. I am filming my wrap-up on the 26th. I am down to my final few books, and I've already got my full impression. I am 30% into The Martyr by Anthony Ryan. And I really enjoy this. It's solid character-based fantasy out of Anthony Ryan, but I'm currently in this kind of fantasy slump, and so I'm being called to other things. Now, by the time this video comes out, this book will be finished. Because I am still reading fantasy. I'm just prioritizing other things ahead of it. So this will be the last book that I read in September. That said, very good. It's very good to be back with Alwyn Scribe. There we go. I had to peek at the character's name. I'm so sorry. It's very good to be back with Alwyn Scribe. We're dealing with the ramifications of the end of book 1 and their new life position, and then how we kind of deal with that, and then what the realm decides to do with his merry band of, I don't want to say misfits, but of this just kind of new, that's a spoiler. I can't say that. Where Alwyn has ended up. So we're going to keep this non-spoiler because this is a book too. But yeah, very good stuff. Anthony Ryan is always an amazing writer. I actually just ended up purchasing his A.R. Ryan, I believe A.R. Ryan? His A.R. Ryan mystery novel. So, again, one of my favorite authors, best in the business. One of the best in the business, I should say. And, yeah, I'm enjoying this. I have a feeling this will end up being a 4 out of 5 for me, just because it is that more character-based, less action-focused, and it's got that slower pace. So, yeah, those are my thoughts there. And then, I squirreled for so many reasons. I wanted to kind of come back and knock out some review copies, and I did 3. I don't know why I'm like just postponing Horns. I've already told you I read Horns, but anyway, I decided to tackle 3 review copies this month. 1 I'm still reading, but 2 I have already finished, and 1 I'm 60% into at the time of recording, and I have a great feel of what it is. So I did The Crimes of Rooker Flynn. This is A.R. Witham's new Keymark book, set a 1.5 to 2 years, depending how you want to argue, after the Legend of Black Jack. Very good. This is a much darker story than the Legend of Black Jack, which had some darkness in it, but this one is just so much darker. And it's very good. I have a dedicated book review coming out for this. We're going to give this one a 4.5 out of 5. We're going to give it a rating of an A. Simply because me personally, having investment in certain characters, just watching them go through so much darkness was hard for me. And I felt like I wasn't able to invest in the story as much as if maybe they hadn't been in this story at all. Despite the fact that it was a pleasant surprise, I'm very conflicted on this rating, very conflicted on this story. Despite the fact that I think the book is made better by their inclusion, I still, like, small baby must protect. I don't know. I liked him, and I don't want to do spoilers. Read this book. It's very good. I know I'm stumbling, but, like, I'm trying to be non-spoiler here, friends. And then we've got John A. Douglas's The Black Iron Why did I say the Black Iron Crown? This is the Black Crown. Age of Adventure #1. We are following Ragoth, who is just this prince. I've got a review of this coming out. I've talked about this in my mid-month wrap-up. This is very good. 4 out of 5. I would give this an A- to a B+ rating. There were some decisions here that, again, like, I was just like, ooh, that was brave. I don't know how I feel about it, but I appreciate you for doing it. I just appreciate the world that John created here. This is a very good read. You should read this. It is compelling. It's fast-paced. It is an epic fantasy chunk, but man, is it good. And yeah, just watching this merry band come together, getting something that was inspired by 90s Dragonlance D&D style fantasy is just fantastic. And yeah, you should totally check this out. Very good. Very good. Very, very, very good. And then we've got The Hero Interviews by Andy Ewington, or as the spine says, A. Ewington. And this is just D&D fun. I'm actually contemplating sending my D&D group copies of this book, just so that they get to enjoy it. This is just silly. It's fun. This is like if you took the City Watch books by Terry Pratchett, you took Dragonlance style D&D, and then what was that other third comparison? I was thinking about this last night, and now that I'm going to say it, it's just nothing. But it's fantastic. This is done like an interview. Like, if you open it up, it is almost pure dialogue. Each chapter starts with some description and then dialogue. Now, I have a confession to make about this book. I'm only reading about 70% of it because there are 1,700 footnotes included in this book that you can read if you want that experience, because they're funny, they're great anecdotes, but I mean, there are certain paragraphs that have like 6 footnotes, and it can just be a bit much, and we'll talk about the breaking of the immersion and things of that. But like, I've decided to just read the interviews, so that kind of boils out to I'm not reading 1,700 footnotes. I did end up reading like 250 to 300. I read the first 20% to completion, and then like just constantly having to push and flick away or flick my eyes down to the bottom of the page to read a footnote just kind of broke my immersion. And after a while, it was just easier to read the text. Whatever you decide to do, you're in for an entertaining experience. Again, this is very heavily D&D based. Orconomics, that's the one I was going to say about. If you wanted to mix D&D, Orconomics, Dragonlance, and Terry Pratchett's like City Watch collection. There we go. That's what sorry. You know when like you stop thinking about something and then like you move on and then like it just all of a sudden comes to you and you've got to start talking about it? Or is that just me? Don't tell me. Actually, tell me in the comments down below. Anyway, very good. I would give this one another 4 out of 5 or a B+. I'm just subtracting because there are just so many footnotes, and after a while, it kind of gets a little tiring to read that many footnotes. But the footnotes are funny, but so is the text. So, again, ambivalent, arguing with myself. So, yes, I read those. And then we come to the horror of it all, well, with one sci-fi. And we've got Death Stalker by Simon R. Green, which was recommended to me by my patron, Heidi. She really wanted me to get to this one, and I did. And I liked it so much that I now have book number 2 on my November. I've actually got 2 books from November on there because of Heidi. And the sequel to Death Stalker being one of them. This was just very pulpy, 1950s parody on sci-fi, very good sort of storytelling. We've got Owen Death Stalker, we've got anti-heroes, we've got anti-heroes? Anti-heroes. Which one of those do I want to say? Anyway, very good stuff going on there. This is just fantastic, and it's inventive, it's crazy, it's madcap, it's got silly AI, it's got spaceships, it's got it all. It's got debauched ruling classes and down with the empire. All of that is within here, and I just really, really enjoyed this. Very, very much so. And then, when it comes to hyperfixation, my current hyperfixation is horror books. And it may not look like I've got a lot, but I've got 4 books here. I read this one in a single day. This is Horror Store by Grady Hendrix. This is my first Grady Hendrix experience, and this was a lot of fun. A bit rushed. The horror elements could have been expounded upon more because they don't really show up until about 50% into this very tiny book. But again, this is great. I'd probably give this a 4 out of 5. Again, it seems to be a 4 out of 5 style of month. But man, like you can just see, this is kind of like an IKEA brochure. This is for a knockoff IKEA style company, which is acknowledged within the book. IKEA exists in this world called Orsk. And it's this kind of American-Swedish knockoff of IKEA. They've even got meatballs in the food court. But one of the things I did is I did the audiobook for this. And the way the chapters open is with like a product with a really silly name. And then the products become more deranged as the book progresses. There we go. It was a lot of fun. It's not going to be anything that reinvents the wheel. A bunch of stuff just fell out of my book. That's what happens when you buy from Pango Books is they like to stick a lot of goodies in the Pango books, like bookmarks and stickers and thank you notes. And I always forget to take those out, and so stuff just starts falling out, like business cards. So yes, Horror Store was very good. And then we've got The Fourth Monkey by J.D. Barker. Now, full disclosure on J.D. Barker. I was unaware that there was controversy around the author when I started reading it. I have done my own research into the controversy. Mistakes were made and apologies were issued. If it ever happens again, I'll get on board and I'll grab out my pitchforks. But as it stands, I'm just going to put it out there that the explanation of the controversy and the apology and the statement that was issued, to me, makes sense, despite the fact that what happened was unacceptable. So I will put that out there that after I started reading it and after I purchased it, I became aware of it. I also like this because this is an autistic author who is an autistic advocate, and as an autistic person, I do appreciate somebody who is open about that and all of that. So yes, I am fully aware of the controversy around the author and that mistakes have been made. This book is about serial killers and about loss and pain, and it was amazing, in my opinion. There's kind of two stories going on here. There was the modern day serial killing that's happening, and then there was this diary that was like Leave It to Beaver meets Silence of the Lambs. It was madcap, it was creepy, it was awesome. I really enjoyed this, and I have purchased the second book to continue this series because it was just so incredibly gripping of a thriller. I really enjoyed it. Then we've got Joe Hill's Horns, which is probably one of my two books. It's tied for my book of the month. Right now I haven't finished the other one that would possibly be my book of the month. I really want to get a special edition of this where there's multiple ones I could pursue. There's the PS Publishing one, which I would kind of prefer. There's the Suntep one from, there's the one from Suntep. That is the gift edition, artist edition. That is gorgeous, that I would love to get my hands on. Probably not going to happen as it's outside of my price range. And then, of course, there's the one that Levidian Press just did that I would also love to have. I don't know. I will at some point get a special edition of Joe Hill's Horns because it absolutely blew my socks off. There's been a killing. Ig, our main character, has been blamed for it. The whole town thinks he did it. The evidence disappeared. And then, like, he wakes up with horns, and people start just spouting all of this vitriol and dark secrets to him, and he just wants it to stop. But he decides to use these powers to track down who actually did the killing of his girlfriend. It's awesome. I loved this story. Loved it. And then in contention, also for my book of the month, is Richard Matheson's Hell House. This is 1970s classic horror story, haunted house. Very, very, very good. I really, really like this. I'm about 70% through it at the time of recording, and I just cannot wait to finish this out. I do have a special edition of this in the mail on its way from Suntep Press, which I just absolutely love Suntep Press editions. This is it if this was going to be my first haunted house story, I'm glad it was Hell House, because this feels like Bradbury and King coming together. Like, it's that style of prose. It's just awesome. It's compelling. And it's just absolutely gripping. There are moments where I'm just like, is this actually happening? What an incredibly creepy haunted house story. And it's just so incredibly good. Basically, this is set in the 70s. We've got this cult house where we had a millionaire who was doing just crazy cult debauchery stuff. A bunch of people died. And then there's been kind of 2 investigations since it's been deemed a haunted house, where only one person has survived both of those expeditions. The first expedition died in its entirety, and then in the 40s there was the second expedition with 1 survivor. And now this rich millionaire has purchased the house. He wants to prove the afterlife because he doesn't want to die, and he wants to know that there's something after. And so he's brought in this team to go in and prove the afterlife, but the researcher wants to disprove it. And it's a tried and true haunted house formula, and yet at the same time, it's so incredibly good. I'm excited to read more Matheson. I am going to be reading I Am Legend within the next few months, and this is just fantastic. I'm glad this is my first haunted house, and I'm glad this is my first Matheson. So thank you, John from Talking Story, for pointing me towards Matheson. I really, really, really appreciate it. But that, guys, is the monthly wrap-up. Let me know how your reading has been going. What was your favorite book of the month? For me right now, if you would press me, I would say it's Horns, but it could easily be Hell House. So we're going to have a dual book of the month. I've been really loving my horror reads. Let's go into October, have some amazing reads. Just hope you're all doing well. Please do yourself a favor. Stay magical. Till next time, peace out. Stay magical. Bye. And as always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons. Thank you for supporting my passion and my hobby. It means the world to me.